All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the mathematical engine that drives PLAZM, the time squared, or t squared mechanics. We're going to break down exactly how the system works, and more importantly, why it's built from the ground up to exponentially reward patience. But before we go any further, just a quick heads up. Please remember, this is all for educational purposes. It is absolutely not financial advice. So let's start with a really basic question. Is all commitment equal? I mean, think about it. If one person commits for 30 days and another commits for 90, should their reward just be scaled by time? Most systems out there would say, yeah, pretty much. But T-square mechanics has a very different answer, a fundamental no. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with why traditional linear models just don't cut it. Then we'll introduce the really elegant time-squared formula. We'll see how that simple square creates some serious exponential power, figure out how shares translate to payouts, and then wrap up with how to adopt the T-squared mindset to really build a winning strategy. Okay, so let's kick things off by understanding the problem that time squared was actually designed to solve. And that is the fundamental flaw you see in almost every standard linear reward system out there. In a typical linear world, the rewards are, well, they're straightforward. You stake for 30 days, you get 30 reward units. You stake for 90 days, you get 90. The problem, though, is that someone who just dips in and out, staking for 30 days 3 separate times, ends up with the exact same reward as someone who committed for the full 90 days right from the start. There's just no mathematical advantage for having that long-term conviction. And what's the result of that? Well, there's no real incentive to stick around, right? So you get this constant churn, this revolving door of short-term participants. It becomes almost impossible to build a stable, committed community when your system treats a tourist the same as a long-term believer. Linear systems treat all time the same, but real commitment just doesn't work that way. So how do you fix this? You change the math, and that brings us right to the heart of this explainer, the time-squared formula. The formula itself is actually super elegant and simple. Your shares are proportional to your principal, multiplied by the number of days you commit, squared. It's all about that little 2 up there. That's where all the magic happens. It means your reward power doesn't just grow with time, it grows exponentially with time. And this simple change creates a ridiculously dramatic difference. A 30-day stake gets you 900 T-squared units. That's already a 30 times power boost over a linear system. Now look at the 77-day mark. You don't get 77 units, you get over 5,900. That is a 77x advantage. And the key thing to see here is that the longer you commit, the wider that gap gets. Let's just pause and focus on this concept for a second, because really understanding the power of squaring is the key to mastering this whole thing. Its power is kind of sneaky. It's not intuitive at all. Okay, so imagine a 60-day stake. That generates 3,600 share units. Got it? Now let's compare that to a 30-day stake, which gives you 900 share units. So what's the real relationship between these two? And there it is. This is the whole ballgame. By doubling your commitment from 30 to 60 days, you didn't just double your shares, you quadrupled them. 2 squared is 4. This is that fundamental, non-linear advantage of T squared. Every single extra day you commit adds more weight, more power than the day that came before it. When you look at it visually, the difference is just stark. For the exact same amount of principal, the person who commits for 77 days earns 6.6 times more shares than the person who only commits for 30. This isn't some small bonus, it's a monumental shift in how rewards are distributed, and it's all designed to heavily favor those with long-term conviction. So, we have all these shares, which is great, but what do they actually do? Let's connect the dots and see how these shares translate into actual daily payouts. It really all comes down to this simple formula. Your daily payout is determined by your share of the total pie. You take your shares, you divide them by the total number of shares across the entire system, and that percentage, that's what you earn from the daily reward pool. It's that simple. More shares means a bigger slice. So the process is pretty straightforward. First, you calculate your own shares using that T-squared formula. Then, you see how that stacks up against the total global shares in the system, which right now is around 14.88 billion. That little calculation gives you your percentage ownership of the pool, and your payout is directly proportional to that ownership. Now, understanding this mechanic, it really requires a shift in thinking. This is what we call the T-square mindset. And it's built on one core idea. Price is temporary, but your shares are permanent. A key factor to remember here is that the total share pool is always growing. For example, back on day 84, the pool was 7.82 billion shares. By day 127, it had grown by 90% to 14.88 billion. What this means is that your fixed number of shares represents a smaller piece of an ever-growing pie over time. This dynamic is exactly why getting in early matters so much. Think about it like this. A stake you made back on day 84 secured you a percentage of a 7.8 billion share pool. Making that exact same stake today means you're competing in a much larger pool of nearly 15 billion shares. Your slice of the pie is just naturally going to be smaller. The earlier you get in, the larger your foundational percentage of that total share pool can be. And here it is. This is probably the most critical concept for the T-square mindset. The mathematical accumulation of your shares is completely, 100% independent of the token's price. It doesn't matter if the market is in a massive rally, a steep crash, or just going sideways. Your shares are growing according to the laws of mathematics, not the whims of the market. They are a constant in a world of volatility. Okay, so now that we get the mechanics and we have the mindset, how do we actually put all this knowledge to work? Let's talk strategy. It all really boils down to these 5 core truths, what we call the T-square thesis. Number 1, exponential is always greater than linear. This system rewards true commitment. 2, the advantage is massive. A 77-day stake is 77 times more powerful than its linear counterpart. 3, it is price independent. Focus on stocking shares, not watching charts. 4, being early gives you a significant compounding advantage. And 5, compounding by restaking your earnings is how you truly multiply your position over time. In the end, this entire system comes down to one simple, powerful truth. 77 days, 5,929 shares, 77 times more than linear, that's not marketing, that's mathematics. Time squared rewards patience exponentially. The longer you commit, the more you earn. Not linearly, but squared. Understand the mechanism. Commit to the duration, let time work for you. Squared. And as always, just a final reminder of the full risk disclosure. Never ever invest more than you are willing to lose, and always do your own thorough research before making any financial decisions.